Greetings, Saber fans. It's your old pal, Meg2 Seth, and everybody's excited about OS6. OS6. So, I wanted to shoot a quick video here today to show you how you can set your Saber up with OS6. Now, there's a lot of defines in Fett263's prop file, and how you use those defines can set up your Saber. The Saber that I'm setting up today does not have choreography mode on it. If you want choreography mode, I'm going to be showing you the site to count down to OS6, and you can read about choreography mode. You can add the appropriate defines if you want choreography mode. So let's get into this. This is the Saber we're going to be setting up to run on OS6, and this is a Proffie 2.2 2-button Saber, and this is a 7 chambers something or another. I don't know, but we're going to set that thing up to run on OS6. So come on and join me for the ride. So off we go. Let's go first. Let's share the screen here. And then I think the first thing I want to do to let y'all know about OS6 is let's go download Proffie OS 6.3. So you want the latest Proffieboard plugin. You don't know where to go. You just search Proffieboard in Google, and there you can see Proffieboard V2 site there. And once that site loads, we're going to scroll down here, and right here under what you will need, you see software. You click on that page, and that gives you the software page. I will link both these pages in the video description. And then here you have download version 6.3 here. When you click on this, it's going to download a zip file that contains OS 6.3, and there we have it. And then what you're going to do is you're going to go to this zip file, which here it is right here. I've shortcut this, y'all. And then we're going to extract all this. And I'm going to extract it right to my desktop. You can extract it wherever you want it. I like keeping stuff that I'm working on the desktop so I can find it. I have subfolders I can put stuff in later. But at any rate, so here it is. It popped up down here, and you can see it's OS 6.3. And I'm going to rename it just so I know. 6.3X. And there we have it. So there's 6.3, and I'm going to bring it over here. Now, the reason I called it 6.3X is because I already have a 6.3 on my computer, but I wanted you guys to see how that worked. So I'm going to get rid of that file. Now, let's go and open our 6.3 file, and as soon as we open that 6.3 folder that you downloaded, you can see that it's in a folder called Proffie OS is the next subfolder. And we're going to open that subfolder, and we're going to go to Proffie OS Eno down here. Hopefully y'all have already, if you're working on Proffieboard Sabers, you should already have Arduino on your computer. I think I'm running 1.8.13. I am 1.8.13. And what you're going to do is then you're going to go to Tools. You're going to go to Boards Manager, which is, let's show you that again. Tools, Board. Come over here to Boards Manager. Click on that. You're going to scroll all the way down to Proffieboard, and when you have your Proffieboard plugin installed, you're going to, if there's an update for it, you'll see an update button here, and there should be an update button for Proffieboard plugin 3.6, but I don't see it because I'm already running Proffieboard plugin 3.6. Very important that you're running Proffieboard plugin 3.6. So I'm going to close all that. We're set up and ready to go. We'll come back to Arduino a little bit later in the video. What we're going to do is we're going to come over here to our Saber that we're working on, this folder. And there you can see I've got a folder that says SD Contents. Now this is currently an OS 5.9 Saber. And I have my fonts, A&H Train, F1 Cross, Rescue, Scavenger, Seismic, Tracks, Vader, and then I have the config file down here. You can see the my config file. This is a OS 5.9 config file, but we're going to upgrade it to a OS 6.3 config file today. But I think one of the most important things before we begin, I just wanted you to see those SD contents. One of the most important things before we begin, let me show you where you can get a bunch of information. So number one, we're going to go to the Crucible website, crucible.hubie.net, crucible.hubbe.net, and if you go to, you can go to ProffieOS beta testing thread. This is a long thread, but we just need post number 1 on this thread. So I'm going to scroll all the way up to post number 1. And here is a post by Frederick, and it talks about, you can also download the ProffieOS here. But here it talks about all the features, the defines, and the styles, the transitions, the functions, serial monitor commands, Fett263 prop features, Fett263 menus, and then the Fett263 prop defines that you're going to need, and all the different ones you can have there. And then you have Fett263 prop extra sounds and information about how to help with testing. But at the very bottom of the post is this countdown to ProffieOS, and I'm going to put the link to this site into the video comment section. There's a lot of reading to do here, folks, and if you want to set up your Saber differently than mine, he's got all kinds of information. Like if you want choreography set up, here's where he's talking about choreography mode and the defines you're going to have to add. But for right now, I'm going to go down here and I'm going to go to edit mode. So I'm in the section edit mode, and I want to go to the documentation page on edit mode, and I'm going to scroll down here because I know there's another page we're going to need in the edit mode page, and this is this page, OS6 edit mode test styles. Now Fernando has a blade library that's coming, but until that blade library is up, we have his test styles here that we can use for OS 6.3 if you're wanting to get your Saber up and running on OS 6. Now I want to go back. I'm going to open another Crucible tab because I want to go back to that initial ProffieOS thread. And if you come down here, you can see there's a link for free voice prop sounds right there. That's one way to get to it. But another way to get to it is here we're on the software page already where we downloaded OS 6.3, and if we scroll up a little bit from where it says 6.3, you said, hey, you're also going to need some sound fonts, tracks, and voice packs. So this link here, which is above right where you downloaded OS 6.3, you want to click on that link, and this is where you get the sounds for OS 6.3. Now this section here where it says voice packs for ProffieOS, these are the sound files that Brian Connor, which is No Sloppy, that he made for OS 6.3. And you've got them in English, Chinese, Spanish, French, Russian, Japanese, and Italian. And so beside each English version, you have where you can actually play a file.
Main menu.
To hear what it sounds like.
Main menu.
Main menu.
Main menu. Main menu.
Main menu.
So I think I like this one.
Main menu.
So I'm going to download this one. So the button next to the speaker is the download button. And you can see that I've downloaded the voice pack. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to I want my computer to show which folder it's in. And I'm going to take this ProffieOS voice pack, English B, and I'm going to drag it over to the Saber folder that we're working on. And I'll show you why in a second. So now let's open up the Saber folder that we're working on. And I'm going to go ahead and right click. And I'm going to extract all the contents of this folder. Bada bing, bada boom. So now that the voice pack is extracted, I'm going to go ahead and delete this file, this zip file, because I don't need it anymore. I don't want it cluttering. But you see this Proffie OS voice pack English B1. When I open it, there's another subfolder. When I open it, I get a common folder. This is what's different in OS6. So I'm going to take this common folder and I'm going to copy it. And now I'm going to open our SD contents and I'm going to paste this common folder in our SD contents. Now, what the common folder contains are basically all the voice files that you need for edit mode. This is color list,
red, orange red, dark orange, orange, gold, yellow.
That's CLR color list. The next one is your numbers.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
And then the rest of these are all edit mode sounds. This is battery level.
The battery level is
Choreography begin.
begin choreography,
Choreography
end
end.
choreography,
80,
80,
50,
50,
40,
40,
100,
100.
etc. So these are all the voice files that OS6 needs to use edit mode that are in the common folder. So that's the big thing we got to do to change our SD card. And what I'm going to do now is my tracks folder used to live here, and there you can see all the tracks that I have programmed onto my tracks folder. And I could add more, but I'm not going to. But I'm going to go ahead and put this tracks folder in the common folder. This is how I set up my Saber. You know, your mileage may vary, but I put my tracks folder in my common folder. Then I want to go into each font and make sure I don't have any tracks folders inside any of these fonts. Not that they won't interfere with anything, it's just that I don't want any spare tracks out there running around. Which it'll take me a long time to explain to y'all. Oh, look, here's a tracks folder. So I want to delete that folder. Because the tracks that I want for all my stuff, all the fonts I already have in my tracks folder. So I don't want those tracks. Alright, so we're all clear of tracks folders now. There's a reason that I do that, because like I want to show y'all something on my tracks naming convention. I didn't want to do that. So we're going to go in my common folder and my tracks folder, and you can see I have my tracks labeled Cantina, Cantina 2, Drone, Fett, Kylo, Mando, March, Pod, Rescue, Ray, Scavenger, and Swerve. You're going to see all those later when we get into Web USB. And if you have them labeled track 1, track 2, track 3, track 4, you're not really going to know what they are, and you're not going to be able to play them in Web USB Editor. So my naming convention works really well for Web USB Editor because I know what all these waves are and I know how they're associated. So when you buy a font, say like, you know, you want a Kyber font, sound fonts, and when you buy a font from Kyber Phonics, and this is his page where you can buy his fonts, and they're loading. So here's A&H Training. So when you buy A&H Training, your folder, I'm going to go into what it looks like when you buy it. And this is a relatively rough intro because this is important for people. When you buy a font, this A&H V2 is what you get. And then you see I have another subfolder, A&H V2, and then I have yet more more subfolders. Now these subfolders are going to interfere, and when you buy this, he gives you two fonts. He gives you Graplex and Training. Well, let's look at Training. but then you can see I have a training version for CFX, for Proffie, and Verso. I want the version for Proffie. And here are all the sound files that comprise ANH training. Now, you want to have these directly in whatever font folder you have named. I'm going to copy these, and I'm going to go back into our SD contents, and I'm going to do this just for kicks and giggles. I'm going to create a new folder, ANH Train 2, which I already have this font, but I'm trying to show y'all what you need to do. So here's our ANH Train 2 empty folder that we just made, and I'm going to paste the contents of our sound font into this folder. So a big mistake a lot of people make is they just go ahead and buy the font, and then they paste the folder that's associated with the font. They paste the folder associated with the font directly into their font folder, and that's not going to work, because if you were to just take this ANH Train 2 folder that you get from this one, if you were just to take this folder and stick that over here, then you have all these subfolders that don't contain sound files, and that's no good. You actually have to get to the core sound files. Now, the subfolders that have sound file names, those are okay, but you cannot have other subfolders on your SD card. So whatever your font is named, when you open it up, you must see these subfolders or sound files directly. There can be no subfolders outside of the sound file subfolders. So when you see how that's set up, hopefully you guys won't make that mistake. We're going to do something else here. I'm going to put a font on this Saber that is not going to be on our config file. And I'm going to pick something that, typically that I wouldn't put on my Sabers. Like maybe a mall or something. Wants this mall, Proffie. Okay, so I'm going to make a new folder, and I'm going to call this mall. Now, this mall is not going to be on our config file, but we're going to add a new preset with this font in it. So I've highlighted all those sound files. I'm going to copy them. I'm going to come over here to our mall folder, which is now empty, and I'm going to paste all these sound files that comprise one sys mall font into the mall folder. So now you see we have a mall folder, and we have all the sound files that comprise one sys mall font. Now I know mall also is going to take Duel of the Fates waves, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go grab Duel of the Fates wave, and I'm going to drag it onto our SD2. And I'm going to open my com folder, my tracks folder, and I'm going to glue in Fates. So now we have Duel of the Fates, which, I'll play it briefly. So Duel of the Fates is now on there. There's a reason I did that, because later on, when we dive a little bit deeper into it, that's how we're going to show you how the Web USB editor works, how you can add a font with the Web USB editor. And I may delete that font and show you how you can add it in edit mode. So it's pretty cool how all this works. But at any rate, this is our SD card. We have our common folder set up with all of our voice files that we need for edit mode. I put the tracks folder inside my common folder. Now you don't have to do that. It's just the way I set mine up. Now I think we're going to be ready to jump into the config file. So we have downloaded OS 6.3. We've updated our Proffieboard plugin within OS 6.3. and we have edited the SD contents from our old 5.9 Saber to be 6.3 compliant with the common folder, and we've moved our tracks folder into the common folder in the SD card. And I added an extra font on there, Maul, and the Duel of the Fates. That is not going to be on our config file because I'm going to show you how we can add fonts without having to reflash the Saber in OS 6.3. This is for this Saber. And now we're going to go into looking at the config file and how do we make the config file where it's going to work within OS 6.3 with edit mode. So let's go. We're going to go back into screen share and off we go. So before we dive into the config file, I'm going to open Proffie OS 6.3. Let's go ahead and close out of that for right now. Here's my Proffie OS 6.3. I'm going to open that. Then I'm going to slide over here and I'm going to open the Proffie OS folder. And I'm going to scroll down to props. Now the props are the different prop files you hear everybody talking about. Whether that's Brian Connor's buttons or Fernando's or Matt McGurry's SA22C or Dimitri Stock's button files. And we're going to be using Fett263's button files with edit mode. And so here it is. It's a big file. You can see it's the biggest one in there. It's 173 kilobytes. It's enormous because this contains all the features of edit mode. So then I'm going to double click on that to open it to see what it shows. Now the cool thing is within this prop file are the instructions for how the Saber is going to work. So when you scroll down, you can see, and I'm still near the top of the file, but as you scroll down, you see he's got 2 and 3 button controls. Now I'm going to highlight, if my mouse will bear with me, I'm going to highlight the 2 and 3 button controls because that's long. And then we get to edit mode, and he talks about edit mode some. So that whole section right there that's highlighted are the instructions for the buttons with edit mode. So if you don't know what the buttons do, that's where you can find the instructions for the buttons. It's right there within this prop file. Everything from activating the Saber to activating the font, the track player, and everything else it can do. It's pretty awesome. And he also tells you how to do short clicks, long clicks, and holds. So that's the prop file that we're going to be adding. You can see it's saber_fett263_buttons.h. You're going to see that later here in a second as we do our config file. So now let's open back the Saber we're working on. And I'm going to open the config file, which I always put on the SD card. Here's our config file. We're going to open it up. So this is a Proffieboard V2.2, and it has 1 blade, 2 buttons, volumes at 2100. Max LEDs per strip is 265 because I'm running a KR V1 blade here on this Saber. This is a charity Saber for a cancer patient, and I had one of these left, so I went ahead and used it in this Saber. Typically this number is going to be 144, so just ignore the 265. It's a special case. My class threshold's at 2.4, enable audio, enable motion, and now we get into some of this old 5.9 stuff, this auto battle mode, SA22C twist on, thrust on, his lockup delay. We're going to delete all of those. So I've deleted all of our old OS 5.9 stuff that we don't want in there anymore, and the rest of this we're going to keep. Now, I'm also going to delete where we defined using Matt McGurry's SA22C buttons. If you have that, you need to go ahead and delete that. Now, we're going to get into, I'm going to minimize this or make it smaller, and over here, and I'm going to go grab one of my config files that I already have, and pretty sure this one will work. Yeah. And before we get too much into the copying and pasting that I'm getting ready to do to add some of these defines in the top of our config, I want to go back to Fernando's page. So how did I know which of these defines to use? Well, I read Countdown to Proffie OS. If you read this page, it tells you which defines you need to add in for all these different sections. It tells you all about it. And I've read this entire page and all of his submenus, and that's how I know what I need to do. It's a lot of reading. So how I'm setting up my Saber is how I set mine up. But I can tell you that for edit mode to work, you need these two defines. # define Fett263 _ edit _ mode _ menu. You need that one. And you also need this one. # define enable _all _ edit _ options. Those two defines are what enable edit mode. Now the rest of these are things that I set up on my Saber that Fernando talked about. The clash strength sound, max clash of 16, say battery volts, twist off, twist on, no battle mode, thrust on, swing on speed, color wheel zoom, and then these next two defines are what makes Fernando's button file act like Matt McGurry's, the old SA22C. Hold button off means you have to hold your power button to power down the Saber, and then you have hold button lockup, which is holding your auxiliary to initiate lockup or tip drag. And then you have say color list and say color list CC. Now this say battery volts I already have up here, so I just doubled it there on this config file. It's a mistake, but I'm not going to double it on this one. So I'm going to copy all those new defines, and it doesn't matter where you put it up here in the config top, just so long as it's between the ifdef and the indef. And I'm going to paste all these defines for edit mode, and now we have all those defines up there for edit mode. So we're good to go. Our config top is done. Now that our config top is done, I need to define that we're going to use Fett263's prop file. And Fett263's prop file begins here. Ifdef config prop, # include quote period /props /saber _ Fett263 _ buttons.h end quote # indef. We need all of this to tell our Proffieboard that we want it to use Fernando's prop file, so we get edit mode. If you don't use Fernando's prop file, you're not going to get edit mode. So you can no longer use SA22Cs if that's what you like, but if you use the same defines that I did, you're going to be good. So next, we're done with copy and paste, so I can get rid of this other config file and get it out of the picture, and I can maximize this one. So now we're getting into a little bit more difficult part of changing your config file so that it'll work with OS 6.3. Number one is we've added a common folder, and in each preset, your edit mode is going to be looking for those voice packs. So we're going to tell it, in addition to using the font A&H Train on this preset, I also want you to look in the common folder for other stuff you might need. So it's A&H Train, common, end quote. That's brand new for OS 6.3. Now, I put my tracks folder within my common folder. Y'all saw that. So I have to tell the Proffieboard that, hey, you need to look in the common folder to find my tracks folder, and then you should find this drone wave in there. Now, next is this style. This is an OS 5.9 style, and we're going to get rid of that. And we're going to add in one of Fernando's blade styles. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go grab his rotoscoping blade style off of his page, and I think it's this one. So right here at the very top is his rotoscoping blade style. Now the new blade styles have a bunch of new text in them that you haven't seen before. All this stuff that I'm getting ready to highlight is new, and yes, it's part of the font, or part of the blade style. You need to include it. And then I'm going to scroll down. It's a long blade style. I'm going to scroll down till this dotted line is the divider that Fernando's put in. And I'm going to copy this blade style, and then I'm going to minimize this. We'll come back to that later. And then I'm going to go back into our config, and where we've already done added the common folder to both of our font and to our tracks. Then I'm going to paste in this new blade style here. Now look, all of his Proffie OS 6.3 test blade styles, the base color is always red. So we're going to have to go in and change the color of our main blade. You still have to add the comma after the double parentheses. And now this is important. This used to only be important if you had an OLED display. But now with Web USB, whatever you have here is the font that's going to display on Web USB. So it's important after your preset to go ahead and title your preset here. And this title would be displayed in Web USB. And then of course we have ending this first preset. And it's just that simple. Now what I am going to do to avoid having to type the comma, because I'm going to reuse this blade style a couple of times, is I'm going to go ahead and copy all this. With the comma at the end, and I'm going to copy it because we're going to use that blade style again. So the next preset we have scavenger, and then I'm going to go semicolon common, and then I need to put my common folder before tracks because our tracks folder is in our common folder. And I'm going to come here and I'm going to delete this OS 5.9 blade style, and then I'm going to paste in our new rotoscoping blade style. And you can see I have that preset titled scavenger here after the blade style in quotes. And then I have the closing parentheses for that preset. Now we get to A and H, and this is Kyberphonics, just a New Hope with normal blaster sounds. And I'm going to go semicolon common. And because our tracks folder is within the common folder, I'm going to go common / tracks there, and we're going to delete this blade style, which is an OS 5.9 blade style. I'm going to delete that, and then I'm going to scroll back up here, and I'm going to paste in that rotoscoping blade style on a New Hope. Now Seismic, this preset is a oops, that's supposed to be semicolon common. This is not a OS 6.3 edit mode blade style, but as long as you stay out of edit mode on it, it'll still run just fine. But I'm trying to make most of the blade styles edit mode compliant. But this is Brian Connor's Seismic, which is really awesome. And then it's titled Seismic, and I'm going to leave that OS 5.9 blade style. OS 5.9 blade styles will work in OS 6.3. You just can't use edit mode on them. If you do, you're going to brick that preset. So don't go into edit mode on old styles, and you'll be just fine. So I've added my common folder on rescue, and I've added the common folder on tracks. Now I'm going to get rid of that old OS 5.9 blade style on rescue, and I'm going to paste in our rotoscope style on rescue. And now we have Vader, and I'm going to go semicolon common, and I'm going to add common to our tracks folder, / and then I'm going to delete this OS 5.9 blade style. And I'm going to paste in Fernando's rotoscoping blade here as well. And then we have crossguard. Let me check after crossguard. F1. I'm going to use different blade styles there. Okay, so I have two more blades that we have to redo. I just want to make sure. Yeah, we did Vader. All right, so now I'm scrolling down to crossguard. So now that we're at crossguard, and you can see I titled Vader there. We're going to go semicolon common, common, and then we have to tell it to look in the common folder for our tracks, common /. And now this is a Fireblade, but this is an old OS 5.9 Fireblade, which will work in OS 6.3. It just won't work in edit mode. So I'm going to go grab an edit mode compliant Fireblade on Fernando's site. So let's go back to Fernando's site and scroll down, because I know he has a Fireblade on here. Jedi Fallen Order, Jedi Fallen Order, Jedi Fallen Order, Kylo Ren Fireblade. So now we're going to copy all this. Copy. And we're going to go back into our config file, and I'm going to paste the Fireblade in. Add the comma at the end of the double parentheses down here. I just added that comma. And that one is titled Fire, but I'm going to title it Cross. That way I know what it is. And then we have F1, semicolon common, and then I'm going to go common / tracks. And we're going to get rid of this blade style, and I think I'm going to do like the pulsing energy blade here on F1. So let's scroll back up. And now we're going to go back into Fernando's page, and we're going to find the pulsing energy blade. There's a flicker secondary blade, flicker crystal chamber, Jedi Fallen Order, Jedi Fallen Order second sister, surging pulse. So we're going to use this surging pulse blade. And this gives us a different blade style. So we'll have 3 different blade styles running on this config file, and they can all be cloned. Which, that's going to be for a later video probably. I mean, we're going to clone a little bit in this video, comma at the end of the blade style. It's titled F1, and I have my closing bracket. And now rescue, this is a fire rainbow blade, and this is a rainbow blade, and this is AM style charging. So we're not going to change those last couple of blade styles. We're going to leave them, but I do need to add my common folder. I'm going to scroll up and make sure we did everything there. We did. Okay, so on our last 3 blade styles, I'm going to leave these blade styles there, but I'm going to add the common folder there and here. And I'm going to scroll down and add it in the next one too. These are the gimmick blades, the rainbow blades at the end of my config file, and I'm just going to leave them. You know, the owner just can't go into edit mode on these blades. Bada bing, we're done. So now we have an OS 6.3 compliant config file. Now the blade config stays the same. Now this one, as I told you, this is running a KRV. The Saber's running a KRV1 pixel stick, so it's set at 265 pixels, and the power and aux buttons all stay the same as OS 5.9. So the big difference are the blade styles, the defines, the prop file, and adding in the common folder at each preset. So right now I'm going to save this back into here. So it should save in 119. It's 119, that's right. So now I'm going to copy this config file that we made, and then I'm going to open OS 6.3, and I'm going to open the config folder, and I'm going to paste this sucker in there. And I'm going to replace the file because this config was already in there. So this is our new config file that we just wrote. It's OS 6.3 compliant. Off we go to the races. All right, so we have adjusted our SD content files and added the common folder with all our edit mode sounds. We put the tracks folder in the common folder. We have We've downloaded OS 6.3. We've upgraded our Proffieboard plugin to 3.6 within Arduino, and we've adjusted our config file. So now that we have our OS 6.3 compliant config file, we're ready to program the Saber. But before we program the Saber, I pulled the SD card out, and I'm going to put the SD card in a reader and pop it in my computer. And I'm going to go to Windows Share so you guys can see all this magic happening. You should hear me plug in this SD card. And we're going to scroll up on that, and I'm going to go ahead and format this. Now, I know a lot of people use the other formatter, but I just use the Windows one. It works fine for me. Your mileage can vary. I haven't had any problems with the Windows SD card formatter. So now our SD card is blank, and what we're going to do is we're going to go back into our Lightsaber folder that we've been working on, and you can see our SD contents here. And you know, I've been thinking about it while I've been doing this video. I think we're going to add one more font that is not on our config file, just to show y'all, because I'm going to show you two ways to add fonts. So I think I'm going to drop another sound font on here. This Imperial Knight Smooth Swing, I think I'm going to grab that one, and we're going to drop it on here too. So I'm going to copy all those sound files that comprise Imperial Knight, and I'm going to make a new folder, and we're just going to call this one IK. And I'm going to open up our IK folder, which is empty, and I'm going to paste all those sound files into that IK folder. And this way I can clone a preset to add the Maul sound font, and I can clone a preset to add the Imperial Knight sound font. I'll make the Imperial Knight sound font on Web USB, and then I'll do the Maul sound font on actual edit mode. So I think that's what we're going to do. So here's all our fonts: A New Hope Training, our common folder, which has our tracks folder in it, the color list, number list, and all the other commands that edit mode needs. F1, IK, which is not on our config file, Cross, Maul, which is not on our config file, Rescue, Scavenger, Seismic, Vader, and then we have our config file that we have upgraded. So now that we have all this stuff, I'm going to highlight all of this, and through the magic of computing, I'm going to send this to our formatted SD card. And we'll use the space-time continuum warp drive to fast forward through this, and we'll rejoin you when it's done. Bada bing, we're done. So now I'm going to go to our SD card. There it is right there, and I'm going to go ahead and eject it. It's now safe to remove it. I'm going to take that thing out. I'm going to go ahead and plug it into the lightsaber. And bada bing, our SD card is in the Saber. Now, we are ready to reflash this board. So, I'm going to plug in this Saber, and I think I'm going to go to transition to a different shot so you guys can see me. And we're going to plug into this Saber. You should hear the computer recognize the Proffieboard when I plug it in. And so now our lightsaber is plugged in. We're ready to rock and roll. So now that we're plugged in, I'm going to click on our 6.3 folder that we downloaded from Frederick's website. I'm going to open Proffie OS folder, and I'm going to scroll down, and we're going to go ahead and open our sketch. Proffie OS Eno. I have my file types exposed, but you want to make sure you're opening the Proffie OS folder that's inside of the Arduino link that's inside of the Proffie OS folder. Don't open a shortcut on your desktop. You won't see any of this. So I'm going to scroll down at the very top, and you see all these defined config files, defined config files, defined config files. And they should all have these forward slashes, 2 forward slashes in front of them. That means commenting it out. That means Arduino is going to ignore those. But now we need to add in our config file. So I'm going to go number sign, define config underscore file, quote config folder. We're looking for pelling underscore config.h, end quote. Now, on tools, we're going to scroll down, select the Proffieboard you have. I have V2, so that's right. Now, used to be we were programming serial or serial and mass storage. Now I think what's important is you do serial and web USB. You can do serial and mass storage and web USB, but I have access to the SD card on the Saber, so I'm just going to go serial and web USB. Then leave all this stuff. This, DOFS is SPI, CPU speed, and leave that there, smallest code. Now we come to our port, and you can see I'm COM10 Proffieboard. I'm going to select COM10 Proffieboard. If you come down here to ports and your port is grayed out, like you don't have anything to select, it means one of two things. First is you don't have a proper data cord. You need a proper data cord to plug into your USB. A phone charging cable won't necessarily work. You have to make sure that it has data. The other thing it could be is you've installed the wrong drivers, or you've run Zadig more than once. If you've run Zadig more than once on your computer, you probably screwed up your drivers, and you need to watch Frederick's video about how to fix your drivers. I'll link that in the doobly-doo down at the bottom of this video when we're done. But now that we've got everything set up, our Saber's plugged in, we've selected all of the stuff and tools that we need to select. We're ready to program this Saber. So let's go ahead and upload this sketch. And through the magic of the space-time continuum time warp drive, we're going to accelerate the compilation. Bam, we're done. So let's go see how much the sketch used. It used 98% of program storage space. It used 257,864 bytes, and we had 262,144 available. So we've used 98% of the space, which that with the config file that y'all saw. Now Brian Connor's seismic blade style is probably taking a huge chunk of that. That seismic blade style is pretty big. So the magic of space-time continuum, we're watching down here in the bottom for our progress to go. Now while we're doing this, I'll say this is a bad time to unplug your Saber, to knock your USB port out of your Proffieboard. Be very careful while you've got the Saber plugged in. You don't want anything messing with the board. If you have a failed upload or an interrupted upload, you can put the Proffie in bootloader mode by pressing boot and reset, and then you upload to the board, and you don't even have to select a port when the Proffie's in bootloader mode. But the correct procedure is to get the right driver so your port's not grayed out, and to not have an interrupted upload. So that's pretty awesome. So what I'm going to do very carefully is I'm going to bring my Saber over here, and I'm going to put this test blade in the Saber really quick while we're plugged in, and we're getting ready to show you something else cool. We're going to show you the web USB app, and I'm hoping that the lightsaber is going to show up on camera. So we're done with Arduino. We're going to close out of Arduino. We're going to come over here, and we're going to go to the Teensy Saber app, which I have bookmarked. I'll put this address for the Teensy Saber app in the comments on this video. If you expand the description on the video, you'll see the link for this Teensy Saber app. This is the web USB or the Proffie OS Workbench editor, and we're going to connect with USB. The first time you connect, you'll get a pop-up that says Proffieboard, and just click on Proffieboard and click Connect. But this is our web USB editor. I know that I'm kind of like blocking some of the controls, but I want you to see the Saber turn on. I can control the Saber right here from the computer. There's it turning on, flash, blast, and then I can do lightning block. There's your lightning block. I can play any track like Cantina. And I'm going to stop the track, and I'm going to come up here and turn the saber off. And there the saber retracts. We're in business. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to get my ugly mug out of this, and you guys will just have me on audio. And we're going to go back into this Proffie OS workbench. Now here's the cool thing about the Proffie OS workbench. We're going to add a new preset that's not, these are all our presets that we programmed here. A&H Train, Scavenger, A&H Seismic, Rescue, Vader, Cross, F1, Fire Rainbow, Rainbow, and Battery Level. Well, we're getting ready to add a new one. So I'm going to add a new preset. How we do that is we go to this edit button here, and that's going to take us to this edit page where we can edit our presets. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to clone this.
I suggest you try it again, Luke. This time, let go your conscious self and act on instinct.
I'm going to clone that preset, A&H Training. And how I'm going to do it is I'm going to come down here and I'm going to hit the plus sign, and it say duplicate the current preset, and I'm like, yeah, duplicate the current preset. Now I want to come down here, here's the duplicated preset, A&H Training, and I'm going to highlight it. And now we're going to come here and we're going to call this one Imperial Knight, because we're going to add that font that we just added onto the SD card. And that font was not in our config file, but here it is in the WebUSD editor. IK, common, bam. Track, let's put the Imperial March to this one probably. March. This is where my naming files, you see how the tracks are named, March. So that's the Imperial March. I know what they are. And then for color, I know we want white, so I know we want them all at 255 because Imperial Knight's white, right? So there we are. The base color is white, alt color is red. We may have to change some of that. Blast color, we'll say we want that to be green. Clash color, we'll do red. Lockup color, we'll do something crazy. How about red? Drag color, we want to be red. Lightning block color, we'll make it red. Gotta have something that contrasts on this white blade. And ignition time. No, you can adjust ignition time. There's where you can adjust your ignition time. But I'm going to leave all that alone. So here's our new preset. So to get out of this edit section of the Proffie OS workbench, you're just going to click on this pencil, and there's your edit. And you can see there's our preset Imperial Knight that we just added. Now I'm going to block these controls because I'm getting ready to put picture in picture so you guys can see the saber light up in this new. So you can see the saber down here. So we're fixing to go back to this, and let's turn this saber on. And there you see it. Clash. Blast. Yeah, that's a short blade, but let's see lockup. Not going to see lockup. Lightning block is what we're going to be able to see. Lightning block. There's your lightning block. Which is red, just like we programmed. So that's pretty cool. So I want to go down and turn the saber off, and that'll about do it about adding presets in the Proffie OS workbench. But one other thing I want to show you, which I have to go back and take my ugly mug out of it because we don't need to see the saber. So I'm going to go back to transition, and I want to show you how you can edit some functions in the saber. So let's go to this edit section. So the edit section, the edit settings is pretty cool because now you can adjust the brightness of your saber, the clash threshold, the blade length. Here you can see at 265, remember this Sabers program to run that KR V1 pixel stick. That's an odd number. Don't worry about that. Yours should be around 130. This was just an odd saber. But you can see gesture ignition, swing on speed, twist ignition, thrust ignition, stab ignition, twist off, force push, power lock, force push length, lock up delay, max clash strength, and clash detect. They're all there. So that's a really cool deal. You can adjust these settings. You can now adjust your blade length. So if you get a saber on OS6 and the blade's not fully illuminated, you can come here and adjust the blade length right there, which is awesome. I guess saber installers, I think you can only adjust it to the max that's programmed. So I can only do 265 and less pixels. So I guess saber installers probably need to program their blades for, maybe 144 pixels max. And then they can be adjusted down from there. I'm not sure. I have to talk about that on the Crucible forum and see if we can get an answer to that question about what's the best practice going to be there. But at any rate, that's the Teensy Saber app. So we're done with that. So what we're going to do is we're going to button this saber up, and we're going to go ahead and we're going to add a new preset with edit mode, and we're going to probably change the color on those blade styles, and that should be it. So stand by, we'll get it set up for showing you guys this saber in action with the KRV1 pixel stick. All right, so now we've got everything working on this saber. We're going to boot it. Got our KR pixel stick in there. So we're going to go ahead and ignite this saber. And it's red. We don't really want it red. So let's go into color changing mode.
Red, orange, red, dark orange, orange, gold, yellow, green, aquamarine, cyan.
Cyan. New Hope training should be cyan, so it's cyan. So we're solid there. Let's get to our preset that we added. Ooh, seismic charge blade. That's pretty cool. This is the OS 5.9 blade. You can see it still works on the saber. So the next preset, this is the one we added in web USB. Just ignite it. Flash is red. Let's see what lockup is. Red. Lightning block, which is red. Tip drag is red. Melt, whoops, it's red, and it gets progressive, so that's awesome. You guys can see that. So that's our new preset. But now what we're going to do,
I suggest you try it again, Luke.
that's the first preset.
Seismic shot. Are you a Jedi?
This should be Vader. And it is. So this is Vader. Yep. So I gotta adjust the clash sensitivity. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna retract this. And what we're going to do is we're going to go into edit mode and we're going to copy this preset.
Edit mode. Edit style. Edit color. Edit font. Edit track. Edit settings. Copy preset.
Copy preset.
Confirm. Accept. Main menu.
I'm going to exit.
Exit.
Alright, so now we've exited edit mode. If we scroll to the next preset, it will also be Vader. This is our clone preset.
You two have a great many things to explain.
So this is our clone preset, which will fall right after the preset we copied. So now I'm going to go into edit mode and I'm going to change the font on this clone preset. Edit mode.
Edit mode. Edit style. Edit color. Edit font. Edit track. Edit font.
Edit font. There's Darth Maul.
Save main menu. Exit.
So now I'm going to go back into edit mode on this Darth Maul. I'm going to change the track that goes with it.
Edit mode. Edit style. Edit color. Edit font. Edit track.
I want to edit the track. I'm rotating the saber to get the options. Oh, there it is, Duel the Fates.
Save main menu. Edit settings.
And exit. Now I've retracted the saber. Now I want to play the track on this thing. Bada bing, we're in business. So that's it. It's exciting. I've upgraded to OS 6.3 on this saber, and out comes the blade. We've taken y'all along for the ride on the whole saber. This has been an arduous experience for me, and those of y'all that watched my YouTube channel late last night know why. But at any rate, you know, as I always leave out, may the force be with you, or the dark side, as it were. Blam! Thank you, everybody, for watching, as usual. I really appreciate y'all tuning in on my channel. And as always,